You've been told to seek peace, to avoid pain, to find a safe place in the world and stay there. From childhood, the message was clear. Comfort is the reward. Don't question too much. Don't reach too far. Don't struggle unnecessarily. Just be normal. Just fit in. But Nietzsche called this narrative what it truly is, a profound and deliberate deception. He saw it not as a sign of civilization, but of decay. To him, comfort was not the path to life. It was the path to slow spiritual death. Nietzsche warned, the masses don't love you. They domesticate you. They want you tame, agreeable, predictable. Because a strong, dangerous individual is a threat to the herd, and so they will praise your conformity and pity your rebellion. But under the surface, it's all control. Comfort dulls your edges. It teaches you to fear discomfort, which means you begin to fear growth. It makes you tolerate mediocrity, which means you forget how to demand greatness. It makes you passive, which means you give up your agency, the very thing that makes you human. You can't become who you are meant to be while chasing comfort. Because the self is not found in ease, it's forged in fire, in resistance, in struggle. Nietzsche believed that nothing of value ever emerged from pleasure. It emerged from tension, from challenge, from the relentless pressure to become. The question Nietzsche throws in your face is brutal. What are you avoiding? What part of yourself have you buried under comfort? He forces you to look in the mirror and ask, have you actually lived? Or have you merely coasted, drugged by convenience and ritual? He doesn't offer soft answers. He offers a mirror, one that reflects your wasted potential with terrifying honesty, one that demands you rise or remain forever asleep. The great irony is that the modern world, obsessed with happiness, has produced more anxiety than any previous generation. Why? Because deep down, we know we're lying to ourselves. We weren't made for constant satisfaction. We were made for the pursuit, for the risk, for the ascent. Nietzsche challenges you to reclaim your wildness, not the kind that destroys, but the kind that refuses to be tamed, the kind that knows life is short, suffering is inevitable, and greatness is voluntary. He speaks to the part of you that wants to scream, to break free, to become. Not the part that wants likes and applause, but the part that longs to stand above, even alone, if that's what truth requires. Comfort is seductive. It promises you rest, but rest becomes stagnation, and stagnation becomes rot. So Nietzsche whispers into your numb ears, wake up, fight, climb, embrace the storm, because nothing you truly admire was born in ease, and nothing worth becoming will ever come cheap. This is your war, not against the world, but against the illusion that comfort is a goal. It's not. It's a grave disguised as peace. To live as Nietzsche challenges you to live, fiercely, honestly, dangerously, is to declare war on your own apathy. It is to spit in the face of the slow death offered by a quiet, obedient life. And if that terrifies you, good. It means you're still alive. To Nietzsche, life was not governed by morality, law, or tradition, but by will. Not will as in wish, will as in force, will as in the fundamental energy behind existence. A drive not merely to survive, but to expand, to elevate, to surpass. He called this the will to power. And it's not about oppressing others. It's about transcending yourself, about rising above your weakness, your laziness, your inherited limitations. It's the raw, untamed surge within you that whispers, I can become more. The will to power is the antidote to victimhood. It says, no one owes me anything. I will create what I need. I will shape my own destiny, not by begging, not by blaming, but by building. But here's the challenge. Most people fear this will because it demands responsibility. It demands that you stop waiting, stop whining, and start doing. It demands that you leave behind comfort, resentment, and the seductive lie that someone else will save you. The will to power says, break your chains, even the ones you've grown to love. Nietzsche didn't want followers. He wanted creators, builders, individuals who could carve meaning out of chaos. And that requires a fierce will, a will that refuses to collapse under the weight of existence. He looked around and saw people who had exchanged their will for obedience. People who bowed to dogma, to routine, to fear. People who called their cowardice humility, their bitterness justice, their weakness virtue. But deep down, you know, you weren't made to serve the herd. You were made to rise from it, to take the pain, the loneliness, the darkness, and alchemize it into strength. The will to power is your inner revolution. It's the part of you that doesn't seek permission. It seeks expression. It doesn't beg for peace. It demands battle. So Nietzsche asks you, are you a creator or a spectator? Will you embrace your will or let it rot into resentment? Because if you abandon your will, someone else will use it against you. Strength, a word thrown around often, rarely understood. Nietzsche didn't mean muscle or bravado. He meant spiritual strength, inner fire, the will to carry your suffering, not in silence, but in creation. What does it mean to be strong in Nietzsche's world? It means you do not beg for lighter burdens. You forge a stronger back. You do not cry for understanding. You carve understanding from solitude. You do not whine when the world disappoints you. You take its indifference and turn it into fuel. To be strong is to face the abyss and say, I'm still here. To walk through despair and build a future in the ashes. To lose everything up and still say yes to life. Not because life is fair, but because you are not weak. Nietzsche believed most people sleep through life, not physically, but philosophically. They let others think for them, feel for them, speak for them. They trade their power for protection, their potential for peace, their strength for security. But you are being called to something else. A path of struggle, yes, but also of transcendence. The world is not waiting to lift you up. It's indifferent to your existence. And that's your gift, because it means you are free. Free to create yourself. Free to rise or to rot. Free to define what strength means and to live it. Nietzsche said, become who you are, not who they say you are, not who you were trained to be, who you truly are, underneath the noise, the fear, the programming. Strength is the discipline to endure when everything tells you to collapse. Strength is the clarity to see reality and still choose joy. Strength is not being untouched by life's storms. It's learning to dance in them, to build in them, to laugh in them. And if you can do that, if you can carry your cross without bitterness, without envy, without asking for applause, then you are not just strong. You are becoming a force the world can't ignore. Nietzsche didn't write for the comfortable. He wrote for the restless, for those who feel something burning inside, a dissatisfaction with mediocrity, a refusal to be tamed. So be strong or be nothing. Not because weakness is evil, but because it leads nowhere, because it shrinks your world, because it silences your voice, and because life is too short, too wild, too precious to be lived halfway. Pity sounds noble. It looks compassionate. It wears the mask of kindness. But to Nietzsche, pity is not a virtue. It is a silent poison, a way of affirming weakness, of glorifying suffering, of turning fragility into sacred ground. He saw a world increasingly addicted to pity, a morality built on victimhood, where to be wounded was to be worthy. But Nietzsche asked a dangerous question. What if we are building a culture that rewards pain over power, submission over strength? Pity does not heal. It consoles. And there's a difference. Consolation is what you offer when there's no hope left. But Nietzsche didn't believe in resignation. He believed in transformation. And for that, pity is useless. Because pity doesn't push. It pats. It doesn't demand. It excuses. He warned that when society worships weakness, it teaches its people to stay broken. Because to rise, to become stronger, to reject the comfort of pity, would mean losing their identity. And Nietzsche would rather you lose every label, every sympathy, than lose your potential. Real compassion isn't soft. It's fierce. It looks someone in the eye and says, "You're better than this. Get up. Fight back. Become." That is what Nietzsche wanted. Not a world of safe spaces, but of sacred strength. You must ask yourself, are you collecting pity? Or are you building power? Because every time you seek pity, instead of progress, you step further away from who you could become. You let the world write your story in the language of suffering, instead of the language of overcoming. Nietzsche's challenge is this: refuse to be pitied. Let your scars be symbols of your survival, not reasons for your retreat. Transform pain into power, or be defined by it forever. Not because weakness is evil, but because it leads nowhere, because it shrinks your world, because it silences your voice, and because life is too short, too wild, too precious to be lived halfway. The Overman. Not a god, not a tyrant, but a future human, forged through struggle, purified by fire, and liberated from the chains of false morality. To Nietzsche, the Übermensch was the answer to a world sick with nihilism, poisoned by pity, and shackled by herd thinking. The Overman does not obey. He creates. He doesn't conform to values. He forges his own, not to be rebellious, but because he sees through the lies of the crowd. He knows that the rules we are given about good, evil, success, failure, were written by the weak to limit the strong. He refuses, and because of that, he becomes. But you cannot reach the Overman by following a map. You must build it with your own pain, your own choices, your own relentless will. The path to the Overman is not a road. It's a climb, up the jagged mountain of your own becoming. There are no shortcuts, no rescue missions, no guarantees. You will lose friends. You will be misunderstood. You will suffer. But the Overman does not ask for ease. He asks for meaning. He asks for greatness, on his own terms. He says yes to life. All of it, the chaos, the pain, the failure, the isolation. He doesn't wait for the world to make sense. He creates sense out of the wreckage. And so must you. To walk the path of the Overman is to abandon safety, to declare war on the small self you've been trained to protect. It is to look at everything society taught you and ask, does this serve me? Or does this shrink me? The Overman is not a destination. He is a direction, a compass pointing toward your most actualized self. The world doesn't need more agreeable men. It needs creators, warriors, thinkers with scars and minds on fire. So rise, not for approval, not for applause. Rise because within you is a mountain begging to be climbed, and only you can make that ascent. Let your scars be symbols of your survival, not reasons for your retreat. Transform pain into power, or be defined by it forever. Not because weakness is evil, but because it leads nowhere. Because it shrinks your world. Because it silences your voice. And because life is too short, too wild, too precious to be lived halfway. Nietzsche did not romanticize suffering. He redeemed it. He saw it not as punishment, but as a sacred fire, a necessary ordeal that separates the real from the artificial, the creator from the complainer, the human being from the herd animal. To suffer consciously, to look pain in the eye and say, "I will make something of this," is the foundation of greatness. Every thinker he respected, every artist he admired, every revolutionary he revered, they all had one thing in common. They didn't run from suffering. They built their lives upon it. But today, suffering is seen as a flaw, a dysfunction, a problem to be medicated, outsourced, hidden. We've sterilized existence, flattened it into algorithms and curated smiles. And in the process, we've lost our edge, our wildness, our truth. Nietzsche wanted to tear the curtain back, to remind us that without suffering, there is no transformation. Without resistance, there is no strength. Without fire, there is no purification. You must suffer. But don't suffer stupidly. Don't suffer passively. Suffer with fire, with will, with direction. Let pain sculpt you. Let it carve away everything weak and inauthentic. Let it leave only what is real. The highest strength is not the one that avoids suffering. It's the one that turns suffering into signal, into story, into structure. The Overman says, "I needed this. I didn't want it, but I made it mine." Your scars mustn't be badges of victimhood. They must be symbols of your rebirth. That you entered the storm and didn't just survive. You emerged stronger, sharper, stripped of illusion. This is the redemption of suffering, not escape, but integration. Not denial, but transformation. If you want to rise, do not fear pain. Use it, harness it, let it become the forge where your true self is born, not reasons for your retreat. Transform pain into power, or be defined by it forever. Not because weakness is evil, but because it leads nowhere, because it shrinks your world, because it silences your voice, and because life is too short, too wild, too precious to be lived halfway. Nihilism, the black hole at the center of modern man's despair. Nietzsche saw it coming. He called it the greatest danger of our time, not war, not poverty, but the belief that nothing matters, that life has no inherent meaning, that truth is dead, and value is subjective. When the old gods fall and no new meaning rises, you are left in a void, a vacuum. And most people, they collapse. They become cynical, addicted, distracted, entertained to death. They try to numb the terror of existence with dopamine and noise. But Nietzsche didn't run from this darkness. He entered it, and he came out with a revelation. Nihilism is no end. It is the beginning. It is the clean slate, the fire that burns false idols to the ground so that you can build something real. But only the strong survive this collapse. The weak cling to old structures. They regress. They hide in old dogmas or digital distractions. But the strong, they face the void. They walk through the fire. They emerge as creators. Escaping nihilism is not about finding new meaning. It's about creating it, crafting it, defining it. It's about having the strength to say, "Nothing means anything unless I make it mean something." Nietzsche didn't want you to worship truth. He wanted you to create truth. Not the universal kind, the personal kind, the kind forged in blood and choice and agony, the kind no one can give you and no one can take away. You must become the artist of your soul, the architect of your worldview, the forger of your own fire. You do not escape nihilism by looking for light. You escape it by becoming the light. That is the strength Nietzsche demands. Not the strength to be right, but the strength to become. Not reasons for your retreat. Transform pain into power, or be defined by it forever. Not because weakness is evil, but because it leads nowhere. Because it shrinks your world. Because it silences your voice. And because life is too short, too wild, too precious to be lived halfway. To Nietzsche, the greatest tragedy isn't individual suffering. It's the loss of individuality itself. And nowhere is this more apparent than in the herd. The collective. The mass that moves not by thought, but by impulse. Not by reason, but by imitation. Most people, he believed, live not as individuals, but as echoes. They say what others say, want what others want, fear what others fear. Not because it is true, but because it is safe. The herd rewards sameness. It punishes deviation. It flatters mediocrity. It fears excellence. The strong are seen as arrogant, the bold as dangerous, the original as mad. And so people hide. They shrink. They nod in agreement, even when they know they're lying to themselves. They censor their thoughts. They betray their dreams, all for the illusion of belonging. Nietzsche's message: leave the herd, not out of pride, but out of truth. To be free is to stand alone, to think alone, to act alone. If necessary, it is to risk misunderstanding, criticism, even exile. But it is the only path to authenticity, the only path to becoming who you are. Because the herd does not want you to become. It wants you to behave. It wants you predictable. It wants you quiet. But if you conform to the herd, you disappear into it. You forfeit your voice, your power, your life. Nietzsche doesn't just criticize the herd. He warns you. The longer you stay in it, the harder it becomes to leave. Comfort becomes addiction. Consensus becomes morality. And soon, you forget you ever had a voice of your own. If you want to live fully, you must risk living differently. And if you want to be free, you must be willing to walk alone. Not forever, but long enough to become someone worth walking with. You are not a fixed identity. You are not a finished product. You are a process, volatile, unfinished, dynamic. Nietzsche saw the self not as something to discover, but something to create, something to become. The question is not who am I, but who am I willing to become? And the path to that answer is brutal, because it requires destruction before it allows creation. Becoming demands that you kill parts of yourself, not out of shame, but out of necessity. The coward, the liar, the addict, the appeaser. These fragments must die if the real self is to live. This is not self-help. This is self-overcoming. A war with your lowest tendencies, a rebellion against your own inertia. Nietzsche didn't want you to fix your life. He wanted you to set it on fire, and forge it again with deliberate will. Becoming is not linear. It is cyclical. You will rise. You will fall. You will question everything. But the strong, they do not stop. They refine. They reforge. They return to the mountain. Each time you confront a fear, you become. Each time you choose discipline over distraction, you become. Each time you speak truth, in a world that rewards lies, you become. But most people don't become. They preserve. They protect an outdated version of themselves out of nostalgia or fear. Nietzsche's challenge? Burn the version of you that no longer serves your ascent. The art of becoming is not about perfection. It's about motion, growth, evolution. It's about fighting entropy with energy. Fighting meaninglessness with your own signature. You are not here to maintain. You are here to metamorphose. And the moment you accept that, the process begins. Nietzsche didn't want you to survive life. He wanted you to sculpt it, to write it, to take authorship over your existence with such audacity that even your regrets would become sacred. His challenge was eternal recurrence, the idea that you must live as if you had to relive every moment again and again, forever. Most people recoil at that idea because most people don't live deliberately. They drift. They react. They exist in passive motion, hoping tomorrow will be different while doing nothing today. But what if you had to live this exact day forever? Every word you said, every choice you made, every cowardice you indulged, every act of courage you ignored. Could you endure that repetition with pride? Or would it be torment? This isn't just a thought experiment. It's a provocation. Nietzsche doesn't ask you to be perfect. He demands that you be present, that you live each act, each conversation, each breath with weight, with fire, with authorship. To live as if you wrote it is to take full responsibility for your pain, for your triumph, for your inaction. No more blaming fate. No more deferring to culture, circumstance, or upbringing. You are the author. Pick up the pen. Write in sweat. Write in scars. Write with blood if you must. But write. Create a life so intense, so sincere, so powerful that you would gladly live it again and again. Not because it was easy, but because it was yours. This is the final demand. Don't inherit your life. Design it. Don't perform a role. Compose a legacy. Don't avoid pain. Transform it. Don't hope for meaning. Write it. Because when the final chapter comes, the only question that will matter is, was this mine? And if the answer is yes, then you were strong. Then you were alive. Then you were Nietzsche's kind of human.